The wind carried dust through the town of Dry Creek that evening, whispering secrets through the wooden saloon doors and over the poker tables where luck and whiskey ruled every man's pride. Evelyn Hartley wasn't supposed to be there. A lady of her grace didn't belong among rough hands and louder laughter. But that night, pride brought her in. Her father had just lost his ranch in a gamble, and she came to demand fairness. Across the smoky table sat Luke Carson, the cowboy every man either feared or admired, and every woman whispered about when the moon rose. He had that calm, dangerous smile, the kind that dared you to test his patience. "How about a deal?" Evelyn said, her voice steady even as her heart raced. "One hand." "You win, you keep the ranch." "I win, you return it." Luke leaned back, amused. "And if it's a draw," he teased. "Then we'll call it fate," she replied, her eyes locking with his like steel meeting fire. Cards flicked, silence grew, and all of Dry Creek seemed to hold its breath. When the final hand turned, the table erupted. She lost by a single card. Luke didn't cheer or gloat. He simply leaned in and said softly, "Guess fate's got a sense of humor, Miss Hartley." Then, almost playfully, he added, "But tell you what, I'll give you another chance to win back what's yours." Evelyn crossed her arms. "And what's the stake this time, cowboy?" His eyes gleamed. "You." The room went silent. She felt every eye on her, the tension thick as the desert heat. Her pride wouldn't let her back down. "Fine," she said. "What's the game?" "No game," he said, standing tall. "Just a bet. You marry me for a week. If by the end of it you don't want to stay, I'll sign your ranch back. No strings attached." It was madness, reckless, and completely improper. But something in his tone made her hesitate. Not fear, not arrogance, but sincerity. "You think you can win me over in a week?" she challenged. "I think," he said, tipping his hat, "so you'll surprise yourself more than me." And so, by the time the sun dipped behind the hills, the saloon witnessed the strangest wager Dry Creek had ever seen. A lady's future hanging on a cowboy's word. The following morning, under a sky painted with gold, the church bell rang. She stood beside Luke, her hands trembling beneath lace gloves. The townsfolk whispered, the preacher stuttered, and Luke simply smiled, saying, "Thou don't worry, darling. I always keep my bets." She wanted to hate him, wanted to regret everything. But as his hand steadied hers, she realized his touch wasn't claiming. It was reassuring. Their vows echoed softly through the wooden chapel, fragile as new dawn. By sunset the deal was sealed. Mrs. Evelyn Carson. She rode beside him toward his ranch, her mind a storm of confusion. He didn't speak much on the trail, but every time their eyes met, she caught something unexpected, not mischief but kindness. When they reached his land, he helped her off the horse gently, saying, "Welcome home, for however long you want it to be." She turned away before he could see her blush, her heart betraying her. As night fell and stars spread across the wide sky, Evelyn looked out from the porch, wondering if this was truly a mistake or destiny dressed as madness. Somewhere inside the house, Luke tuned his old guitar, humming a tune that sounded like hope. Maybe, just maybe, while she thought, this was a bet she wouldn't mind losing after all. The week began with distance, too, strangers bound by pride and a wager neither fully understood. Evelyn kept her chin high and her heart guarded, determined to prove she couldn't be tamed. Luke, on the other hand, moved through his days calm and steady, like a man who knew storms didn't last forever. He didn't try to charm her with fancy words or grand gestures. Instead, he showed her the rhythm of his life, sunrise rides through golden fields, simple meals by the fire, laughter shared with ranch hands who respected him more as a man than a myth. Slowly, the silence between them softened. One evening, as the wind swept over the open plains, Evelyn watched Luke repair a broken fence under the dying light. Sweat streaked his brow, his shirt clinging to his shoulders as he worked without complaint. She found herself staring, not at his strength but at his quiet patience. When he caught her gaze, he smiled, and for the first time she didn't look away. "You could just ask what's on your mind," he said, his voice low. "I was wondering," she replied softly, "why a man like you would risk his heart on a bet." He rested his tools, leaning against the post. "Because sometimes, Miss Evelyn, a gamble's the only way to make fate pay attention." His words sank deep, and something in her chest shifted. a warmth she couldn't name. Days passed, and what began as a forced companionship turned into something genuine. She started helping with chores, laughing when things went wrong, learning how to saddle a horse, and realizing freedom didn't always mean running. Sometimes it meant belonging. Each night they sat under the stars, sharing stories of losses and dreams. Luke spoke of his mother, who taught him that love was patience in disguise, and Evelyn found herself telling him things she'd never shared with anyone. About her fears, her loneliness, and how losing her family's land had made her feel invisible. On the 7th day, the bet was set to end. The papers were ready. He'd kept his word as promised. All she had to do was take them and walk away. She stood by the porch, heart pounding, while he waited beside his horse holding out the deed. "You won, ma'am," he said with a soft smile. "Fair and square. The land's yours again." She hesitated, her fingers trembling. "And what about the marriage?" she whispered. He tipped his hat. "I keep my word there, too. I won't hold you." But she didn't move. The silence stretched, heavy with everything left unsaid. Finally, she took a deep breath. "You know Luke Carson," she said quietly. "I came here to win a bet, but I think I found something better." He frowned, puzzled. "What's that?" "A reason to stay." The cowboy froze for a heartbeat, then smiled. A slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He stepped closer, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "So the lady wants to stay with the man she married by mistake?" he teased gently. Evelyn laughed, tears glistening like morning dew. "It wasn't a mistake," she said. "It was a lesson, and a blessing in disguise." He leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers. "Then I reckon," he murmured, "this bet went right after all." The wind carried their laughter through the valley as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The people of Dry Creek would talk for years about the strange love story that began over a gamble, how a stubborn lady and a quiet cowboy found something neither of them was, looking for home. That night, Evelyn stood on the porch as Luke strummed his guitar softly, the melody floating through the warm evening air. She smiled, whispering to herself, "Sometimes the heart knows before the mind does." And as the stars filled the sky, Luke looked up and said with a grin, "Guess fate finally played fair.